The evening at our house was filled with laughter and joy. We were celebrating 10 years of marriage with friends and family. I watched Sarah with admiration and love, thinking about how lucky I was to have her. She looked stunning, her laughter infectious, and her smile lighting up the room. I was in the middle of recounting an old story when I saw her receive a text message. Her face changed instantly. The smile vanished, replaced by a fleeting look of fear. I tried to shake off the feeling, convincing myself it was nothing. But as the night went on, I couldn't help but notice the way she kept glancing at her phone. Later, as we were cleaning up after the party, I casually asked, "Who was that texting you earlier? You looked a bit startled." She hesitated for a moment, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. "Oh, just a friend from the book club. We were discussing a new book." Her explanation seemed plausible enough, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few weeks, I started to notice little things that had escaped my attention before. Sarah began coming home later than usual, her explanations vague. She spent a lot of time on her phone, always making sure it was out of my sight. One evening, she mentioned she had been spending more time at the library, having found a renewed passion for reading. She described it as a peaceful escape from the chaos of daily life. Curious, and perhaps a bit suspicious, I decided to drop by the library one afternoon. As I walked through the quiet aisles, I saw her in the far corner, talking animatedly with a man I didn't recognize. He was about our age, with a friendly smile and an easygoing demeanor. When Sarah saw me, she seemed startled for a moment before composing herself. "Michael, this is John. He's the librarian here. We've been discussing some of the books I've been reading." John extended his hand with a warm smile. "Nice to meet you, Michael. Sarah has told me a lot about you." We exchanged pleasantries, but something felt off. The way they interacted seemed too familiar, too comfortable. On the way home, I asked Sarah about John. She brushed it off, saying he was just a nice guy who loved books as much as she did. Yet the unease in my chest remained. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's trips to the library became more frequent. One night, she came home later than usual, her cheeks flushed, her eyes sparkling. "You seem happy," I remarked, trying to keep my tone light. She smiled but quickly looked away. "I just had a great discussion with John about this new book I'm reading. It's fascinating." I wanted to believe her, but the gnawing suspicion wouldn't let me rest. One Saturday, when she told me she was going to the library, I decided to follow her. I parked a few blocks away and watched as she entered the building. After a while, I saw her and John leave together. They walked to a nearby cafe and sat in a corner, talking and laughing. My heart pounded as I watched them. I felt like an intruder, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away. The way she looked at him, the way he leaned in close to her, it was too intimate. I left before they could see me, a storm of emotions raging inside. That night, I confronted Sarah. "Is there something going on between you and John?" She looked taken aback, her face going pale. "What?" "No, Michael, of course not. We're just friends. You're being ridiculous." I wanted to believe her, but the doubt was too strong. "Then why do I feel like you're hiding something from me?" She sighed, frustration and guilt flashing in her eyes. "I'm not hiding anything. You're just paranoid." The conversation ended in anger and silence. As I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, I knew things were about to change. The trust we had built over the years was crumbling, and I was helpless to stop it. In the days that followed, the tension between us became unbearable. Sarah's late nights and secretive behavior continued, fueling my growing paranoia. I couldn't concentrate at work, constantly replaying our conversations and her evasive answers in my mind. Every time I saw her phone, I wanted to grab it and uncover the truth. But I knew that would only drive a deeper wedge between us. One evening, after another argument about her whereabouts, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I started following her whenever she said she was going to the library. I felt like a private investigator, my heart pounding every time I tailed her car. It felt wrong, invasive, but I needed to know. One rainy afternoon, I followed her to the library and waited outside. She didn't come out for hours. When she finally did, she was with John again. They walked to his car, and I saw them exchange a brief hug before she got in. I felt a wave of nausea. The reality of the situation was hitting me like a sledgehammer. The next day, I took a half-day off work and visited the library myself. I intended to confront John, to look him in the eyes, and see if he was the man my wife was willing to throw away our marriage for. When I walked in, John was at the front desk. He greeted me with a smile that seemed genuine, but all I could see was betrayal. "Hi, John. Can we talk?" I tried to keep my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. "Of course, Michael. What's on your mind?" He led me to a quiet corner of the library. "I know something's going on between you and Sarah," I said bluntly. "I need you to tell me the truth." John's face fell, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of guilt. "Michael, I assure you there's nothing inappropriate between Sarah and me. We've become friends, yes, but that's all." "Friends don't keep secrets from their husbands," I snapped. "I've seen the way you look at each other." John sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I can't control how Sarah feels or what she shares with you. All I can tell you is that from my side, there's no affair. Maybe you should talk to her again." I left the library more confused than ever. His words sounded sincere, but my gut told me otherwise. That night, I decided to confront Sarah once more, but differently. I needed proof, something concrete that would force her to admit the truth. When she came home, I asked her to sit down. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. Please be honest with me." She looked wary but sat down across from me. "What is it, Michael?" "I followed you to the library yesterday. I saw you with John. I know something's going on, and I need you to tell me what it is." Her eyes widened with shock and anger. "You followed me? How could you, Michael? That's an invasion of my privacy." "I had to," I replied, my voice trembling. "You've been so secretive. I feel like I don't even know you anymore." Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a moment, I thought she would finally confess. Instead, she stood up and walked to the door. "I can't do this right now," she said, her voice breaking. "I need some space." She left, and I was left alone in the silence of our living room, feeling more lost than ever. Days turned into a blur as I tried to hold on to the shreds of my sanity. I started to wonder if I was the one losing touch with reality. Then, one evening, I came home to find Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, a letter in her hand. She looked up as I entered, her eyes red from crying. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat down, bracing myself for what was coming. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, handing me the letter. "I found this in my bag. It's from John." I read the letter, my hands shaking. It was a love letter, filled with confessions of feelings he had for her, talking about moments they shared and dreams of a future together. My world shattered as I read each line. "I didn't know about this letter until today," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "I swear, Michael, I didn't. I never intended for things to go this far. I was just lonely." "Lonely?" I repeated, my voice breaking. "We've been married for 10 years, Sarah. How could you not tell me you were feeling this way?" "I didn't want to burden you," she sobbed. "I thought I could handle it, that it would pass. But John, he listened. He was there when I needed someone." I felt a mix of rage and sorrow. "So what now? What are we supposed to do?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know what to do, Michael. I love you, but I'm so confused." We sat in silence, the weight of her betrayal hanging between us. For the first time in our marriage, I felt completely lost, unsure of the path ahead. The days that followed were some of the darkest I'd ever experienced. The house felt colder, emptier, as if the love that once filled it had drained away, leaving behind a hollow shell. Sarah and I moved around each other like ghosts, our conversations reduced to the bare minimum, our interactions strained and uncomfortable. One night, after yet another sleepless attempt to reconcile my thoughts, I decided that I needed clarity. I couldn't continue living in this limbo of doubt and distrust. When Sarah came home from work, I asked her to sit down with me in the living room. "Sarah, we can't go on like this," I said, my voice weary. "We need to figure out what we're going to do about us." She nodded, tears already welling up in her eyes. "I know, Michael. I've been thinking about it a lot too." "I don't want to lose you," I continued, my voice breaking. "But I can't keep living like this, not knowing where we stand." Sarah took a deep breath. "I've been seeing a therapist," she confessed. "I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me make sense of everything." I was surprised but also relieved. "That's good, Sarah. It's a step forward." "I've been trying to understand why I felt so drawn to John," she said, her voice trembling. "Why I let myself get so emotionally involved with him. And I've realized that it wasn't just about him. It was about me feeling disconnected, lonely. I should have come to you, but I was scared. Scared of what? I asked, my heart aching at her words. Scared that you wouldn't understand, that you'd think less of me, she replied. I was afraid to admit that I was unhappy. Her words hit me hard. I had been so caught up in my own world, my own routine, that I hadn't noticed her pain. I'm sorry, Sarah. I should have been more attentive, more supportive. It's not just your fault, Michael, she said gently. We both let things slide. We both stopped trying as hard as we used to. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our realizations hanging heavily between us. Finally, Sarah spoke again. I think we need to take some time apart, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to figure out who I am, what I want, and I think you need to do the same. The thought of being apart from her was terrifying, but I knew she was right. How long? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. I just know that I need some space to think. We agreed that Sarah would stay with her sister for a while. The day she left, I felt a mix of relief and despair. The house was even quieter without her presence, and I struggled to find solace in the emptiness. In the days that followed, I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the pain with busyness. I also started seeing a therapist, hoping to gain some insight into my own feelings and actions. It was hard, confronting my own shortcomings, but I knew it was necessary. One afternoon after a particularly grueling session, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I ended up at the library, drawn there by some subconscious need to face my demons. As I walked through the aisles, I saw John at the front desk. He looked up and saw me, a look of surprise and then guilt crossing his face. Michael, he said, standing up, I didn't expect to see you here. I needed some answers, I said bluntly. I need to know why. John sighed, motioning for me to follow him to a quiet corner. I didn't set out to hurt you, Michael, he began. When I met Sarah, we just clicked. We had similar interests, similar frustrations. It was easy to talk to her, to confide in her. But you knew she was married, I said, my voice tight with anger. I did, he admitted, and I hated myself for it. But feelings don't always follow the rules, do they? No, they don't, I agreed bitterly. But that doesn't excuse what happened. I know, John said, looking genuinely remorseful. If I could take it back, I would. But the truth is, Sarah and I crossed a line, and for that, I'm truly sorry. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of closure. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a step towards understanding. As I left the library, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. There was still a long way to go, but at least I was moving forward. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, I began to rebuild my life. Sarah and I spoke occasionally, carefully navigating our conversations to avoid old wounds. She was still seeing her therapist, and so was I. We were both working on ourselves, trying to heal the scars of our past mistakes. Then, one evening, Sarah called me. Her voice was calm, steady. Michael, can we meet? I think it's time we talked about our future. We met at a small cafe, neutral ground for what felt like a crucial conversation. She looked better, more at peace, and I realized that I had missed her more than I had allowed myself to admit. Michael, she began, I've done a lot of thinking, a lot of soul-searching, and I've come to realize that despite everything, I still love you. I want to try to make this work, if you're willing. I felt a surge of hope, but also a twinge of fear. I love you too, Sarah, but we can't just go back to the way things were. We need to rebuild, to start over in some ways. She nodded. I know. I'm willing to put in the work if you are. And so we began the slow, painful process of rebuilding our marriage. It wasn't easy. There were still moments of doubt, of hurt, but there were also moments of hope, of connection. We started seeing a marriage counselor, learning to communicate better, to be more honest with each other. Gradually, the wounds began to heal. Trust, once shattered, started to be rebuilt. We both changed, grew, and in the process found a deeper, more resilient love. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real, and it was ours. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace, knowing that we were moving forward together, one step at a time. As Sarah and I began the arduous process of rebuilding our marriage, we faced many challenges. The wounds from her emotional affair with John were still fresh, and trust was fragile. Despite the difficulties, we were both committed to making our relationship work. We attended marriage counseling regularly, and I started to see glimmers of hope in our interactions. One evening, after a particularly productive session with our counselor, Sarah and I sat on the porch, the warm glow of the setting sun casting a gentle light on us. "Michael," she began, her voice soft, "I want to thank you for giving us this chance. I know it hasn't been easy." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "We're both fighting for this, Sarah. I believe in us." She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I believe in us too." In the following weeks, we made a conscious effort to reconnect. We started having regular date nights, simple yet meaningful. Sometimes we'd go out for dinner. Other times we'd just take a walk in the park, talking about everything and nothing. Slowly, the distance between us began to shrink. One Saturday, we decided to visit the library together. It was a symbolic gesture, a way to confront the place where our troubles had started and reclaim it as a part of our new beginning. As we walked through the familiar aisles, I noticed Sarah's tension. "Are you okay?" I asked, squeezing her hand reassuringly. She nodded. "Yes, it's just strange being here with you, but it feels right too." We found a quiet corner and sat down, flipping through books and sharing passages that caught our interest. It felt like old times, before everything had gone wrong. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of normalcy, a glimpse of the life we were trying to rebuild. As we left the library, I noticed John at the front desk. He saw us and gave a small, respectful nod. There was no animosity in his gaze, just a quiet acknowledgement. It was a reminder of the past, but also a signal that we were moving forward. That night, as we lay in bed, Sarah turned to me. "Michael, I want to be completely honest with you. There are still moments when I feel guilty, when I question everything. But being with you today, in the library, it helped me see that we're on the right path." I held her close, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. "We're doing this together, Sarah, one step at a time." Our journey was far from over, but each day brought us closer to a new understanding, a deeper connection. We both learned to communicate better, to be more open about our feelings and fears. The walls that had built up between us slowly started to come down. Then came a day that tested our progress. Sarah received an email from John. She showed it to me immediately, her hands shaking. "I haven't read it yet. I wanted to show you first." I took a deep breath, opening the email. It was a brief message, apologizing once again for his role in our turmoil and wishing us both happiness. He mentioned that he was leaving town for a new job, and he hoped that we could both find peace. "How do you feel about this?" I asked Sarah, watching her closely. She sighed, relief evident on her face. "I'm glad he's leaving. It will make things easier for us, less reminders of the past." I nodded. We should focus on us, on our future. As the weeks turned into months, our efforts began to bear fruit. We started making new memories, building a foundation stronger than before. Trust, once shattered, was slowly being rebuilt, brick by brick. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced them together. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Sarah turned to me, a serious look in her eyes. "Michael, I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've been through, and I want to renew our vows. I want to make new promises to each other, to celebrate how far we've come." Tears welled up in my eyes as I took her hands in mine. "I'd love that, Sarah, more than anything." We planned a small ceremony, inviting only our closest friends and family. It was a beautiful, intimate affair, held in the garden where we had first fallen in love. As we stood before our loved ones, exchanging vows, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had weathered the storm, and here we were, stronger than ever. "I promise to always communicate with you, to never let us drift apart again," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion. "And I promise to always be there for you, to cherish and support you through all of life's challenges," I replied, my voice steady with conviction. As we sealed our vows with a kiss, I knew that we were truly starting a new chapter. The past would always be a part of our story, but it didn't define us. What defined us was our resilience, our commitment to each other, and the love that had brought us back together. In the months that followed, we continued to grow, both as individuals and as a couple. We celebrated our victories, big and small, and faced our challenges head on. Our journey wasn't easy, but it was ours, and we were in it together. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you, Michael, for fighting for us, for believing in us." I kissed her forehead, feeling a profound sense of contentment. "Thank you, Sarah, for giving us a second chance, for being my partner in this journey." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I knew that our future was bright. We had found our way back to each other, and there was nothing we couldn't overcome. Together, we had rewritten our story, one filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. Life began to settle into a new rhythm for Sarah and me. Our renewed vows had infused our relationship with a sense of purpose and commitment that hadn't been there for a long time. We continued our weekly date nights, but we also made sure to carve out time for ourselves as individuals. This balance allowed us to grow both together and apart, giving us the strength to face whatever came our way. One evening, as we were having dinner, Sarah brought up an idea that took me by surprise. "Michael, I've been thinking about going back to school," she said, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "Really? That's great, Sarah. What do you want to study?" I asked, genuinely interested. "I've always had a passion for literature and writing. I think I'd like to pursue a degree in English," she replied, a smile spreading across her face. "I think that's a wonderful idea," I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "You've always been so passionate about books. It makes sense to follow that dream." Sarah's decision to go back to school marked a new chapter in our lives. She enrolled in a local university, and I supported her every step of the way. Our schedules became busier, but we managed to find time for each other, making sure our relationship remained a priority. One Saturday, as Sarah was buried in her studies, I decided to clean out the attic. It was a task I had been putting off for years, and I figured it was time to tackle it. As I sifted through old boxes, I stumbled upon a stack of letters tied with a ribbon. Curious, I untied the ribbon and began to read. The letters were from Sarah, written during our early years together. They were filled with love, hope, and dreams for our future. Reading them brought back a flood of memories, reminding me of the deep connection we had always shared. It also made me realize how far we had come, despite the hardships we had faced. That evening, I showed Sarah the letters. She read them with tears in her eyes, and we spent hours reminiscing about our past. It was a beautiful reminder of the love that had always been at the core of our relationship, a love that had endured and grown stronger over time. As Sarah's studies progressed, I noticed a change in her. She was more confident, more self-assured. Her passion for literature reignited her creativity, and she began writing again, something she hadn't done in years. It was inspiring to see her so happy and fulfilled. One evening, after she had finished a particularly challenging paper, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Michael, I've been thinking about us, about everything we've been through," she began. "What about it?" I asked, curious about where this was going. "I want to write our story," she said, her eyes shining with determination. "I want to share our journey, the struggles, the triumphs, everything. I think it could help others who might be going through something similar." I was taken aback by her proposal. "Are you sure? That's a very personal story to share." "I'm sure," she replied, her voice steady. "I think it's important. Our story isn't just about infidelity and pain. It's about love, forgiveness, and growth. It's about resilience." I nodded, feeling a swell of pride and admiration for her. "I think it's a wonderful idea, Sarah. If anyone can tell our story with honesty and grace, it's you." Sarah began working on the book in her spare time, pouring her heart into every page. I supported her fully, offering feedback and encouragement whenever she needed it. The process was therapeutic for both of us, allowing us to reflect on our journey and appreciate how far we had come. Months passed, and Sarah's book began to take shape. It was a raw, honest account of our relationship, detailing the highs and lows, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs of reconciliation. As she neared the completion of the manuscript, she decided to share it with a few close friends and family members. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People were moved by our story, finding hope and inspiration in our journey. Sarah's book was more than just a memoir. It was a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me with a smile. Michael, I've been thinking about the future, she said. What about it? I asked, curious. I want us to travel more, to explore new places and make new memories together, she replied. Life is too short to stay in one place. I smiled, feeling a sense of excitement. I'd love that, Sarah. Where should we go first? I've always wanted to visit Europe, she said, her eyes sparkling. Let's start there. And so we began planning our first trip to Europe, eager to embark on a new adventure together. It felt like the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with possibilities and excitement. As we traveled through Europe, exploring new cities and immersing ourselves in different cultures, we grew even closer. The shared experiences and adventures strengthened our bond, reminding us of the importance of living in the moment and cherishing each other. One evening, as we sat in a quaint cafe in Paris, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. Michael, do you ever think about the future? About where we'll be in 10, 20 years? She asked. Of course, I replied, taking her hand in mine. I see us growing old together, surrounded by love and laughter. I see us continuing to support each other, no matter what life throws our way. She smiled, her eyes filled with love. Me too. I can't imagine my life without you. As we finished our coffee and strolled through the streets of Paris, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Despite the challenges we had faced, we had emerged stronger, more connected than ever. Our journey was far from over, but I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together, hand in hand. Back home, life resumed its usual rhythm, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah's book was published, and the response was incredible. It touched the lives of many, offering hope and inspiration to those facing similar struggles. Sarah began receiving invitations to speak at events and book signings, sharing our story with a wider audience. Through it all, we remained each other's biggest supporters. Our love had been tested, but it had also been strengthened, forged in the fire of adversity. We had learned to appreciate each moment, to communicate openly, and to never take each other for granted. One evening, as we celebrated the success of Sarah's book, she turned to me with a smile. Michael, do you remember when we renewed our vows? We promised to always communicate, to cherish each other through all of life's challenges. I remember, I said, pulling her close, and I intend to keep that promise every single day. Me too, she replied, her eyes shining with love. Here's to us, to our journey, and to whatever the future holds. As we clinked our glasses together, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Our story was one of love, resilience, and growth. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that made it beautiful. We had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever came next, together. Life had a way of surprising us, even when we thought we had everything figured out. After the success of Sarah's book and our travels through Europe, we settled back into our routine with a newfound sense of purpose. Sarah continued to write and speak at events, while I focused on my work and our home. Our relationship was stronger than ever, built on the foundations of trust, communication, and love. One evening, as we were preparing dinner together, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. Michael, I've been thinking about something, she began, her voice hesitant. What is it? I asked, sensing the seriousness in her tone. I've been offered a teaching position at the university, she said, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. It's a great opportunity, but it would mean a lot more work and responsibility. I smiled, feeling a surge of pride. That's amazing, Sarah. You'd be an incredible teacher. Do you want to take it? I do, she admitted, but I'm worried about how it will affect us. We've worked so hard to get to this point, and I don't want to jeopardize that. I took her hands in mine, squeezing them gently. We'll make it work, Sarah. We always do. This is your dream, and I want to support you in every way I can. Sarah accepted the position, and our lives adjusted to accommodate her new role. She threw herself into her work with passion and dedication, and I couldn't have been prouder. Our schedules became busier, but we made sure to carve out time for each other, even if it was just a quiet evening at home or a walk in the park. As Sarah settled into her teaching role, I noticed how fulfilled and happy she was. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and it brought a new energy into our lives. We continued to grow as a couple, learning to navigate the challenges that came with her new job. It wasn't always easy, but our commitment to each other remained unwavering. One evening, as we were relaxing on the couch, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Michael, I have an idea," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "What is it?" I asked, intrigued. "I want to start a writing workshop for students," she explained. "I've been thinking about how much writing helped me during our difficult times, and I want to share that with others. I think it could be really therapeutic for them." "That sounds like a wonderful idea, Sarah," I said, feeling a swell of admiration for her. "You've always had a gift for connecting with people through your words." Sarah began organizing the workshop, and I helped her in any way I could. Seeing her passion for teaching and writing was inspiring, and it reminded me of why I had fallen in love with her in the first place. She had a way of bringing out the best in people, and her students were no exception. As the workshop took off, Sarah's reputation as a teacher and mentor grew. She received letters from students and parents, thanking her for the impact she had made on their lives. It was a testament to her dedication and the love she poured into her work. One evening, after a particularly successful workshop session, Sarah and I sat on the porch, enjoying the cool evening breeze. "Michael, I couldn't have done any of this without your support," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've done all the hard work, Sarah," I replied, pulling her close. "I'm just here to cheer you on." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "You're more than that, Michael. You're my rock, my partner in everything. I'm so grateful for you." "I'm grateful for you too, Sarah," I said, kissing the top of her head. "We've been through so much, and we've come out stronger. I wouldn't trade this journey for anything." As the months passed, we continued to build our life together, finding joy in the everyday moments and strength in our love for each other. We faced challenges head-on, knowing that we had each other's backs no matter what. Then, one day, an unexpected opportunity arose. Sarah was invited to speak at a prestigious literary conference in New York. It was a huge honor, and I knew how much it meant to her. "Michael, I'm so excited, but I'm also nervous," she admitted as she showed me the invitation. "You'll do great, Sarah," I said, my voice filled with confidence. "You have a powerful story to tell, and people need to hear it." We traveled to New York together, turning the trip into a mini vacation. It was a chance to reconnect and explore the city, making new memories along the way. On the day of the conference, I watched with pride as Sarah took the stage, her voice steady and confident as she shared our journey with the audience. Her speech was met with a standing ovation, and I could see the impact her words had on the listeners. It was a moment of triumph, a validation of all the hard work and dedication she had put into her writing and teaching. After the conference, we celebrated with a quiet dinner at a small, cozy restaurant. "Michael, this has been an incredible experience," Sarah said, her eyes shining with happiness. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You've achieved so much, Sarah. I'm just glad I could be here to support you," I replied, feeling a deep sense of pride and love for her. As we walked back to our hotel, hand in hand, I realized how far we had come. Our journey had been filled with ups and downs, but we had faced every challenge together. We had grown, both as individuals and as a couple, and our love had only deepened with time. Back home, life returned to its usual rhythm, but with a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. Sarah continued to inspire her students and write, while I focused on my work and supporting her in every way I could. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Michael, I've been thinking about our future again," she said. "What about it?" I asked, curious. "I want us to continue exploring new opportunities to keep growing and evolving together," she replied. "Life is too short to stay in one place. There's so much out there for us to experience." I smiled, feeling a sense of excitement for the future. "I agree, Sarah. Let's keep pushing ourselves, finding new adventures and challenges. Together, we can achieve anything." As we clinked our glasses together, I felt a deep sense of contentment and hope for the future. Our journey was far from over, but I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together, hand in hand. We had built a life filled with love, resilience, and endless possibilities, and I couldn't wait to see where our path would lead us next. In the years that followed, Sarah's career flourished. Her writing workshops became renowned, attracting students from all over the city. She published more books, each one resonating deeply with readers and critics alike. As for me, I found fulfillment in my own work and took pride in supporting Sarah's dreams. Our life was full, rich with experiences and love. One evening, after a particularly long day, Sarah and I were sitting on the porch, enjoying the quiet of the night. "Michael," she said, her voice soft, "I've been thinking about what's next for us." I turned to her, curious. "What do you mean?" "I love what I'm doing, but I feel like there's more we could be doing together," she replied, her eyes reflecting the stars above. "I've always wanted to start a foundation, something that helps others through writing and creativity. What if we did it together?" The idea took me by surprise, but as I thought about it, I realized how perfect it was. Sarah had always been passionate about helping others, and I knew I could use my skills to support this vision. "I think that's an amazing idea, Sarah. Let's do it." Over the next few months, we poured our hearts into building the foundation. We called it Words of Hope, aiming to provide resources and support for people who wanted to use writing as a tool for healing and personal growth. We reached out to our networks, gathered a dedicated team, and began the work of turning our dream into reality. The launch event for Words of Hope was a huge success. We held it at a beautiful venue, inviting friends, family, and colleagues to celebrate with us. Sarah gave a heartfelt speech, sharing our vision and the journey that had led us to this point. As I watched her speak, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and love. We had come so far, and this was just the beginning. Running the foundation was challenging, but it was also incredibly rewarding. We saw firsthand the impact our programs had on people's lives. Stories poured in from participants who had found solace and strength through writing, and it reinforced our belief in the power of words. One day while we were working in the office, Sarah looked up from her desk, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Michael, have you ever thought about writing your own story?" The question caught me off guard. "My own story? I don't know, Sarah. I've never considered myself much of a writer." She smiled, reaching out to take my hand. "You've been such an important part of this journey. Your perspective, your experiences, they're just as valuable. I think you'd have a lot to share." I pondered her words, realizing she was right. Our story had always been told through her lens, but there was another side to it, one that might offer different insights and lessons. "Maybe you're right," I said slowly. "I think I'd like to try." Writing my story was an entirely new experience for me. It was cathartic, forcing me to confront my feelings and memories in a way I hadn't before. Sarah was my biggest supporter, offering guidance and encouragement along the way. As the pages filled up, I found a sense of clarity and understanding that had eluded me for years. When I finished the manuscript, I felt a mix of emotions: pride, relief, and a bit of apprehension. Sarah read it first, her eyes filling with tears as she turned the final page. "Michael, it's beautiful," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for sharing this part of yourself." With Sarah's encouragement, I decided to publish the book. Titled The Other Side of the Story, it was a companion piece to Sarah's work, offering my perspective on our journey. The response was overwhelming. Readers appreciated the honesty and vulnerability, and it sparked important conversations about love, forgiveness, and resilience. Our lives were busier than ever, balancing the foundation, our individual careers, and our personal lives. But through it all, we remained each other's anchor. Our relationship had evolved, growing deeper and more meaningful with each passing year. One evening, as we were wrapping up a board meeting for Words of Hope, Sarah turned to me with a serious expression. "Michael, there's something I need to talk to you about." "What is it?" I asked, sensing the gravity in her tone. "I've been feeling off lately," she began, looking down at her hands. "I've been having these strange symptoms, and I think it's time I see a doctor." My heart sank, a wave of worry washing over me. "Of course, Sarah. Let's get you an appointment as soon as possible." The days that followed were a blur of tests and consultations. The uncertainty was the hardest part, the not knowing what we were dealing with. Finally, we sat in the doctor's office, holding hands as we awaited the results. The diagnosis was a shock. Sarah had a rare autoimmune disease, something that would require ongoing treatment and lifestyle changes. It was a lot to process, and I felt a mix of fear and determination. "We'll get through this, Sarah," I said, squeezing her hand. "We've faced challenges before, and we'll face this one together." Sarah was incredibly strong throughout the process, facing each new hurdle with courage and grace. We adjusted our lives to accommodate her treatments, and I made sure to be there for every appointment, every step of the way. It wasn't easy, but our love for each other gave us the strength to keep going. As time passed, we found a new rhythm. We learned to appreciate the small moments, finding joy in the everyday experiences. Our foundation continued to thrive, and we drew inspiration from the people we helped, their resilience a mirror of our own. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Michael, do you remember what we promised each other when we renewed our vows?" "I do," I said, smiling back at her. "We promised to always communicate, to cherish each other through all of life's challenges." "And we've kept that promise," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "We've faced so much together, and we've come out stronger. I'm so grateful for you, for us." "Me too, Sarah," I replied, pulling her close. "I wouldn't trade this journey for anything. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As the fire crackled in the hearth, I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. Our journey had been filled with unexpected twists and turns, but through it all, our love had remained constant. We had built a life of meaning and purpose, and I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it with the same strength and resilience that had brought us this far. Together, we could overcome anything. Sarah's diagnosis brought an unexpected shift in our lives. As we adapted to her new reality, the foundation we had built together became even more significant. It was a source of purpose, a testament to our commitment to helping others find healing through writing. Despite the challenges, our bond grew stronger, our love deeper. One morning, while I was making breakfast, Sarah came into the kitchen with a thoughtful look on her face. "Michael, I've been thinking," she said, sitting down at the table. "There's a project I want to start, something that feels even more personal." I turned to her, curious. "What kind of project?" "I want to compile a book of letters," she explained, her eyes bright with the idea. "Letters from people who've gone through difficult times, sharing their stories and the lessons they've learned. I think it could be incredibly powerful, a way to show others that they're not alone." I smiled, feeling a surge of admiration for her. "That sounds like a beautiful project, Sarah. How can I help?" Over the next few months, we worked together to bring Sarah's vision to life. We reached out to our network, inviting people to contribute their letters. The response was overwhelming. Letters poured in from all over the country, each one a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Compiling the book was an emotional journey. We read each letter carefully, moved by the honesty and vulnerability of the writers. It was a reminder of the power of sharing our stories, of the connections we forged through our experiences. Sarah and I spent countless hours selecting and organizing the letters, shaping them into a cohesive narrative. One evening, as we were reviewing the final draft, Sarah looked up at me, her eyes filled with emotion. "Michael, thank you for doing this with me. It means more than you know." I reached out, taking her hand. "It's been an honor, Sarah. These stories are a reflection of what we've always believed, that we're stronger together, that sharing our pain can bring healing." When the book was published, the response was extraordinary. Letters of hope became a beacon of light for those struggling with their own challenges. We received messages from readers who found comfort and strength in the words of others, who felt seen and understood in a way they hadn't before. Despite the joy and fulfillment of our work, Sarah's health continued to be a concern. There were good days and bad days, and we learned to navigate them with patience and love. We adapted our schedules, making sure to prioritize her well-being, while still dedicating time to the foundation and our personal projects. One particularly difficult day, as I was helping Sarah through a bout of pain, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Michael, I don't want this to define us," she said softly. "I don't want my illness to overshadow everything we've built together." "It won't," I assured her, my voice firm. "We're more than this, Sarah. We're a team, and we'll get through this together. Your strength, your spirit, they're what define us." We continued to find joy in the little things, in the quiet moments of togetherness that reminded us of what truly mattered. Our evenings were filled with laughter and conversation, our days with the work that brought us both fulfillment and purpose. The foundation grew, expanding its reach and impact, and we felt a deep sense of pride in what we had accomplished. Then one day, an unexpected opportunity arose. Sarah was invited to speak at an international conference on creative writing and mental health. It was a prestigious event, one that would put her work and our foundation on a global stage. Michael, I'm not sure if I'm up for it, she admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Traveling, speaking in front of such a large audience, it feels overwhelming. You can do it, Sarah, I said, my voice filled with confidence. You have an important message to share and people need to hear it. We'll take it one step at a time, and I'll be with you every step of the way. With my support, Sarah agreed to attend the conference. We made the necessary arrangements, ensuring her medical needs would be taken care of during the trip. As we boarded the plane, I could see the mix of excitement and apprehension in her eyes. We've got this, I whispered, squeezing her hand. The conference was held in a beautiful city, and we took the opportunity to explore and enjoy our surroundings. It was a welcome break from the routine, a chance to reconnect and create new memories. On the day of her speech, Sarah stood before a packed auditorium, her voice steady and confident as she shared our journey and the mission of Words of Hope. Her speech was met with a standing ovation, the audience moved by her words and her strength. It was a moment of triumph, a validation of all the hard work and dedication she had poured into her writing and the foundation. As we left the stage, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and love for her. The conference opened new doors for us, leading to collaborations and partnerships that expanded the reach of our foundation. We returned home with renewed energy and a sense of purpose, ready to tackle the challenges ahead. Our life was a delicate balance of managing Sarah's health and pursuing our shared goals, but we faced it all with determination and love. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me with a smile. Michael, do you remember when we started this journey? How uncertain everything seemed. I do, I replied, smiling back at her. We've come a long way since then. We have, she agreed, her eyes reflecting the fading light. And through it all, we've stayed true to ourselves and to each other. I couldn't have done any of this without you. I feel the same way, Sarah, I said, reaching for her hand. We're stronger together, and I wouldn't trade this journey for anything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. Our life was far from perfect, but it was ours, built on a foundation of love, resilience, and shared dreams. Whatever the future held, I knew we would face it together, hand in hand, just as we always had. As time went on, Sarah's condition gradually became a part of our daily rhythm, something we navigated with care and patience. Our work with the foundation continued to grow, and we found solace and purpose in the stories of those we helped. Life was a mix of challenges and triumphs, each day a testament to our resilience and love. One evening, as we were sitting on the couch, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. Michael, I've been thinking about our next big project, she said, her eyes sparkling with the excitement I had come to love. What do you have in mind? I asked, curious and eager to hear her latest idea. I want to create a retreat for writers, she explained. A place where people can come to find peace, to write, and to heal. It would be a sanctuary for those who need it, a place to escape the noise of everyday life and focus on their craft. I smiled, feeling a surge of admiration for her vision. That sounds amazing, Sarah. Where do you want to start? We spent the next few months planning the retreat, finding the perfect location in the countryside, a serene spot surrounded by nature. We designed the space to be welcoming and nurturing, with cozy cabins, communal areas for workshops, and plenty of quiet nooks for solitary writing. It was a labor of love, a project that brought us even closer as we worked side by side to bring it to life. The grand opening of the retreat was a magical event. We invited writers from all walks of life, many of whom had participated in our foundation's programs. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of anticipation and hope, a feeling that this place would become a haven for creativity and healing. During the opening ceremony, Sarah gave a heartfelt speech, sharing her vision for the retreat and the journey that had led us here. As I watched her speak, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and love. This retreat was a culmination of our dreams, a tangible representation of our commitment to helping others. The retreat quickly became a beloved destination for writers. We hosted workshops and events, bringing in guest speakers and mentors to inspire and guide our participants. The feedback we received was incredible, with many attendees sharing how the retreat had transformed their lives and their writing. Despite the demands of running the retreat and our foundation, we made sure to carve out time for each other. Our relationship continued to thrive, strengthened by the challenges we faced and the love we shared. We found joy in the simple moments, whether it was a quiet evening at home or a walk through the retreat grounds, hand in hand. One afternoon, while we were walking along a wooded path at the retreat, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Michael, I've been thinking about another book project," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "What kind of project?" I asked, intrigued. "I want to write a book about the retreat," she explained. "Stories from the writers who've come here, their experiences and transformations. I think it would be a beautiful way to share the impact this place has had." "I love that idea, Sarah," I said, feeling a surge of excitement. "I think it would be a powerful book, one that could inspire so many people." We began collecting stories from the writers who had attended the retreat, interviewing them, and gathering their experiences. Each story was unique, filled with moments of struggle and triumph, of creativity and healing. As we compiled the book, I was struck by the profound impact the retreat had on these writers, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the work we were doing. One evening, as we were editing the final manuscript, Sarah looked up from her laptop, her eyes filled with emotion. "Michael, thank you for being my partner in all of this," she said softly. "I couldn't have done any of it without you." I reached out, taking her hand. "We're a team, Sarah. Everything we've accomplished, we've done together. I'm so proud of us." When the book was published, it was met with widespread acclaim. The Writer's Retreat, Stories of Healing and Transformation, became a bestseller, touching the hearts of readers around the world. It was a testament to the power of storytelling, to the connections we had forged through our work. As we celebrated the success of the book, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Our journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also been rich with love and purpose. We had built something beautiful together, something that had made a real difference in the lives of others. One evening, as we sat on the porch of the retreat, watching the sun set over the hills, Sarah turned to me with a contemplative expression. "Michael, do you ever think about what's next for us?" she asked. "I do," I replied, smiling. "But I also love where we are right now. We've accomplished so much, and I'm excited to see what the future holds." "Me too," she said, resting her head on my shoulder. "But I can't help but wonder what other adventures are out there for us." "Whatever they are, we'll face them together," I said, kissing the top of her head. "That's the most important thing." As we sat there, I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. Our journey had been one of love, resilience, and shared dreams. We had faced challenges and triumphs, and through it all, we had remained each other's anchor. Whatever the future held, I knew we would face it together, with the same strength and love that had carried us this far. As the years passed, our lives settled into a comforting rhythm at the retreat. Sarah's health remained stable, thanks to careful management and regular medical consultations. Our foundation continued to thrive, supporting writers and artists in finding their voices and healing through creativity. One summer afternoon, as we sat under the shade of an old oak tree at the retreat, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Michael, do you remember when we first met?" I chuckled softly, tracing the lines of her face with affection. "Of course I do. It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?" "It does," she agreed, her gaze drifting to the tranquil landscape around us. "So much has changed since then, but one thing has always remained constant. Our love," I finished for her, taking her hand in mine. "Through everything, it's been the anchor that's kept us grounded." Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking about how far we've come, Michael. From that uncertain beginning to all that we've built together." "It's been quite a journey," I mused, a sense of gratitude swelling within me. "And it's far from over. I still believe we have so much more to do, so many lives to touch." She squeezed my hand gently, her eyes bright with determination. "I agree, there's still so much we can achieve together." As we sat there in companionable silence, I reflected on all that we had accomplished. The retreat had become a sanctuary not only for writers, but for us as well, a place where we found solace in each other's presence, where we nurtured our dreams and shared our joys and sorrows. In the months that followed, we continued to expand the retreat's offerings. We introduced new programs focused on mindfulness and self-care, recognizing the importance of nurturing both body and soul. Writers and artists flocked to our doors, drawn by the reputation of our sanctuary and the supportive community we had cultivated. One evening, during a poetry reading by the lake, Sarah approached me with a gleam in her eye. "Michael, I've been thinking about our next big project," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "What do you have in mind this time?" I asked, always eager to hear her ideas. "I want to create a scholarship fund," she explained, "a fund that supports aspiring writers who may not have the financial means to attend workshops or retreats. I believe in the power of writing to heal and transform, and I want to make sure that opportunity is accessible to everyone." I nodded, deeply moved by her vision. "That's a wonderful idea, Sarah. How do you want to get started?" Over the following months, we worked tirelessly to establish the scholarship fund. We reached out to donors and supporters, sharing our vision for empowering emerging writers. The response was overwhelming, with contributions pouring in from individuals who shared our passion for literature and the arts. When we finally launched the scholarship fund, it was met with enthusiasm and gratitude from the writing community. We received applications from talented writers around the country, each one sharing their dreams and aspirations. It was a humbling experience, knowing that we were helping to pave the way for the next generation of storytellers. One afternoon, as we sat in our office at the retreat, surrounded by letters of appreciation from scholarship recipients, Sarah looked at me with a smile. "Michael, I'm so proud of what we've accomplished together." "As am I," I replied, my heart swelling with pride. "And none of it would have been possible without you, Sarah." She reached across the desk, taking my hand in hers. "We've built something truly special here, Michael. Something that's making a difference in people's lives." We sat there for a moment, letting the significance of our work sink in. The retreat, the foundation, the scholarship fund, they were all a testament to our shared values and our commitment to making a positive impact in the world. As the years went by, our love for each other continued to deepen. We faced new challenges and celebrated new milestones, always united in our belief that together we could achieve anything. Our life together was a tapestry of love, creativity, and purpose, a journey that had brought us closer than ever before. One evening, on the anniversary of our foundation's founding, we gathered with our closest friends and supporters at the retreat. Sarah stood before the crowd, her voice steady and filled with emotion as she spoke about our journey and the future ahead. "As we look back on all that we've accomplished," she began, her eyes scanning the faces in the audience, "I'm filled with gratitude for each and every one of you. Your support has been the driving force behind everything we've done." I stood beside her, feeling a swell of pride and love for the woman who had been my partner in every sense of the word. Together, we had weathered storms and basked in the sunshine of success, and through it all, our love had remained steadfast and true. As Sarah concluded her speech, the crowd erupted into applause, a heartfelt tribute to her words and our shared vision. I looked around at the faces of our friends and supporters, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for the community we had built together. Later that evening, as we stood under the stars, hand in hand, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Michael, do you remember when we first dreamed of creating this retreat?" "I do," I replied softly, gazing into her eyes. "And look how far we've come." "We've come a long way," she agreed, her voice filled with love. "And I wouldn't change a thing." Neither would I thought, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. Our journey had been a testament to the power of love, resilience, and shared dreams. And as long as we had each other, I knew there was nothing we couldn't accomplish. Months turned into years at the retreat, each season bringing its own blend of writers seeking solace, inspiration, and healing. Sarah and I continued to pour our hearts into our foundation's work, nurturing the community we had built and expanding our reach beyond the retreat's tranquil grounds. One brisk autumn afternoon, Sarah came to me with a glimmer in her eye, holding an old, weathered journal in her hands. "Michael, look what I found in the library archives," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. I took the journal from her hands, flipping through its yellowed pages filled with faded ink. "What is it?" I asked, intrigued by her discovery. "It belonged to William Emerson," she explained, tracing her fingers over the name scrawled on the cover. "He was one of the original founders of this library, back in the early 1900s. As I read through the entries, I was transported back in time to an era when the library served as a hub of intellectual discourse and community engagement. William Emerson chronicled the challenges and triumphs of establishing the library, the struggles of the early settlers, and the vibrant cultural life that flourished despite adversity. "This is a treasure trove of history," I remarked, captivated by the vivid descriptions and heartfelt reflections. Sarah nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I want to preserve this history, Michael. I want to create an archive that celebrates the library's legacy and its role in our community." "I think it's a wonderful idea," I agreed, placing the journal back in her hands. "How do you want to proceed?" Over the following months, Sarah dedicated herself to the preservation project. She enlisted the help of local historians and volunteers, organizing workshops and community events to collect oral histories and artifacts from residents who had witnessed the library's evolution over the decades. The archive project became a labor of love for Sarah, a testament to her passion for storytelling and preserving cultural heritage. Together, we spent countless hours poring over old photographs, handwritten letters, and newspaper clippings, piecing together the rich tapestry of the library's history. One rainy afternoon, as we sat in the archive room, surrounded by boxes of documents and artifacts, Sarah looked at me with a smile. "Michael, thank you for supporting me in this project. It means so much to me." "I'm proud of you, Sarah," I replied softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've created something truly remarkable here." As we continued to unearth hidden gems from the archive, we discovered stories of resilience, community spirit, and the transformative power of knowledge. The library had been a lifeline for generations of families, a place where dreams were born and futures shaped. In the midst of our work on the archive, we received an unexpected visit from a distinguished literary scholar who had heard about our preservation efforts. Dr. Elizabeth Johnson, a renowned expert in cultural history, expressed interest in collaborating on a book about the library's impact on the community. "It's a fascinating project," Dr. Johnson remarked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "The stories you've uncovered are a testament to the enduring legacy of this library." Sarah and I exchanged a glance, both of us sensing the opportunity to further our mission of celebrating literature and community. We eagerly agreed to collaborate with Dr. Johnson, sharing our insights and discoveries from the archive. Over the next year, we worked closely with Dr. Johnson on the book, conducting interviews, researching historical records, and weaving together narratives that span generations. The project became a labor of love for all involved, a tribute to the enduring significance of libraries in our society. When the book was finally published, Pages of History, the Library, and its Community received widespread acclaim. It captured the hearts of readers near and far, shedding light on the library's role as a cultural cornerstone and a beacon of hope for generations of readers and writers. At the book launch event, held in the library's grand reading room, Sarah stood before the audience, her voice steady with emotion as she spoke about the journey that had led us here. I stood by her side, feeling a swell of pride and gratitude for all that we had accomplished together. "As we celebrate the publication of this book," Sarah began, her eyes scanning the faces in the audience, "I'm reminded of the power of storytelling to connect us, to inspire us, and to remind us of our shared humanity." The room erupted into applause, a heartfelt tribute to the dedication and vision that had brought Pages of History to life. Dr. Johnson joined Sarah on stage, expressing her admiration for our collaborative efforts and the impact of the library's legacy on her own academic journey. As we mingled with guests and signed copies of the book, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Our journey had been one of discovery, resilience, and shared passion for literature and community. Together we had created something enduring, a testament to the power of stories to shape our lives and connect us to each other. Later that evening, as Sarah and I stood outside the library under a canopy of stars, she turned to me with a smile. "Michael, do you remember when we first dreamed of creating the archive?" "I do," I replied softly, wrapping my arms around her. "And look how far we've come." "We've come a long way," she agreed, resting her head against my chest, "and I wouldn't change a thing." Neither would I thought, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for the journey we had shared. Our life together had been a tapestry of love, creativity, and purpose, a journey that had brought us closer than ever before. As we stood there, hand in hand, gazing up at the stars, I knew that our work was far from over. There were still stories to be told, dreams to be realized, and new chapters waiting to unfold in the ongoing narrative of our lives together. With the success of Pages of History, our lives at the retreat took on a new sense of purpose and momentum. The book brought renewed attention to our foundation and the library, attracting visitors from far and wide who were eager to experience the rich cultural heritage we had preserved. Sarah and I found ourselves busier than ever, balancing our roles as stewards of the retreat, advocates for literature, and champions of community engagement. We welcomed writers in residence, hosted workshops on creative writing and mindfulness, and continued to expand our programs to serve a diverse array of artists and scholars. One spring morning, as we walked along the shores of the lake, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Michael, do you ever think about what comes next for us?" I considered her question, feeling a mix of excitement and uncertainty about the future. "I suppose we've achieved more than we could have imagined," I replied. "But there's always more we can do." Sarah nodded, her gaze scanning the tranquil landscape around us. "I've been approached by a university about establishing a partnership," she began tentatively. "They're interested in collaborating on a research institute focused on literature and community studies." "That sounds intriguing," I said, intrigued by the possibilities. "What do you think about it?" She smiled warmly, taking my hand in hers. "I think it could be a wonderful opportunity to expand our impact, Michael. Imagine what we could accomplish with access to university resources and expertise." Over the following months, Sarah and I met with representatives from the university, discussing potential collaborations and outlining our shared vision for the Research Institute. Together, we envisioned a hub of intellectual inquiry, where scholars, writers, and community members could come together to explore pressing social issues through the lens of literature and storytelling. As plans for the Institute took shape, we faced new challenges and opportunities. We secured funding from philanthropic organizations and donors who shared our commitment to advancing the arts and humanities. The university provided logistical support and academic oversight, ensuring that the Institute would uphold rigorous standards of scholarship and community engagement. When the Research Institute finally opened its doors, it was met with enthusiasm and support from the academic community and the broader public. Scholars from various disciplines converged at the retreat, drawn by the Institute's innovative approach to interdisciplinary research and its focus on fostering dialogue and collaboration. Sarah and I found ourselves immersed in a whirlwind of activities, lectures, symposia, and collaborative projects that bridged the gap between theory and practice. We welcomed visiting scholars from around the world, each bringing their unique perspectives and insights to our community. One evening, during a reception in honor of the Institute's inaugural lecture series, Sarah stood before the assembled guests, her voice filled with pride and gratitude. "As we celebrate the launch of this institute," she began, her eyes shining with emotion, "I'm reminded of the power of literature to illuminate the human experience and inspire positive change." The audience erupted into applause, a testament to the Institute's potential to shape the future of literary scholarship and community engagement. I stood beside Sarah, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment as we looked out at the faces of colleagues, friends, and supporters who had joined us on this journey. As the years went by, the Research Institute flourished under Sarah's leadership, becoming a beacon of innovation and intellectual inquiry. Scholars continued to flock to our retreat, drawn by the Institute's commitment to exploring the intersections of literature, culture, and society. One crisp autumn evening, as Sarah and I walked through the grounds of the retreat, we paused to gaze up at the stars. "Michael," she said softly, turning to me with a smile, "do you remember when we first dreamed of creating this retreat?" "I do," I replied, wrapping my arms around her. "And look how far we've come." "We've come a long way," she agreed, resting her head against my shoulder. "And I wouldn't change a thing." Neither would I thought, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. Our journey had been one of passion, perseverance, and shared vision, a journey that had brought us closer together and enriched our lives in ways we could have never imagined. As we stood there hand in hand gazing up at the stars, I knew that our work was far from over. There were still stories to be told, discoveries to be made, and new horizons waiting to be explored in the ongoing narrative of our lives together. As the seasons turned once more at the retreat, Sarah and I found ourselves reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. The Research Institute thrived, drawing scholars and thinkers from around the world to our tranquil haven nestled among the hills. One brisk winter morning, Sarah came to me with a gleam in her eye, holding an old photograph in her hands. "Michael, look what I found in the archives," she exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. I took the photograph from her, studying the faded image of a group of children gathered around a bonfire in front of the library. "Who are they?" I asked, intrigued by the snapshot from another era. "They were students from the local school," Sarah explained, her eyes alight with nostalgia. "They used to come here for storytelling sessions and nature walks." As we delved deeper into the archive, we uncovered a treasure trove of memories and anecdotes from the retreat's early days. We learned about the visionaries who had founded the retreat as a sanctuary for artists and scholars, and the educators who had nurtured generations of young minds through literature and creativity. Inspired by the stories we uncovered, Sarah proposed revitalizing the retreat's educational programs for local schools. "Imagine the impact we could have," she mused, her voice filled with passion. "We could inspire a new generation of storytellers and thinkers." I nodded in agreement, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Together, we reached out to educators and community leaders, inviting them to collaborate on a new initiative aimed at promoting literacy and creative expression among local youth. The response was overwhelming. Teachers and students alike embraced our vision, eagerly participating in workshops, storytelling sessions, and outdoor expeditions that brought literature to life in unexpected ways. The retreat buzzed with youthful energy once more, echoing with laughter and the rustle of pages turning. One afternoon, as I walked through the grounds of the retreat, I came across a group of children gathered under a sprawling oak tree, listening intently as Sarah regaled them with tales of adventure and imagination. Her storytelling captivated their young minds, transporting them to distant lands and igniting their curiosity. As the sun set over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the retreat, I stood back and watched with pride as Sarah inspired the next generation of storytellers. It was a moment of quiet fulfillment, a reminder of the enduring power of literature to shape lives and foster connections. In the months that followed, our educational programs flourished, expanding to include partnerships with local libraries, museums, and cultural institutions. Together, we curated immersive experiences that combine storytelling with hands-on learning, encouraging students to explore their creativity and express themselves through words and art. One evening, during a gathering of educators and community leaders at the retreat, Sarah stood before the assembled guests, her voice filled with gratitude. "As we celebrate the success of our educational programs," she began, her eyes shining with emotion, "I'm reminded of the transformative power of literature to inspire, educate, and unite us." The audience erupted into applause, a heartfelt tribute to Sarah's dedication and vision. I stood beside her, feeling a deep sense of pride as we looked out at the faces of teachers, students, and parents whose lives had been touched by our efforts. As the years passed, the retreat continued to evolve, becoming a vibrant hub of creativity, education, and community engagement. Scholars and artists flocked to our haven, drawn by the retreat's reputation for fostering innovation and collaboration. One evening, as Sarah and I strolled through the grounds of the retreat, hand in hand, I turned to her with a smile. "Sarah, do you ever think about what lies ahead for us?" She looked at me with a twinkle in her eye, her expression thoughtful. "I do," she replied softly. "And I believe there are still many stories waiting to be told, many dreams waiting to be realized." I nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of excitement about the future. Our journey together had been one of discovery, resilience, and shared passion, a journey that had brought us closer than ever before. As we walked beneath the starlit sky, surrounded by the beauty of the retreat and the promise of tomorrow, I knew that our work was far from over. There were still adventures to be had, challenges to be overcome, and new horizons waiting to be explored in the ongoing narrative of our lives together. As Sarah and I continued to nurture the retreat and its educational programs, our days became filled with a rhythm of purpose and fulfillment. The children from the local schools thrived in the creative environment we fostered, their imaginations sparked by the stories and experiences shared within our sanctuary of learning. One autumn afternoon, while Sarah was leading a workshop on poetry under the ancient oak tree, I found myself drawn to the library. As I wandered among the shelves, running my fingers over the spines of cherished classics and contemporary works, I stumbled upon an old leather-bound journal tucked away in a forgotten corner. Curiosity piqued. I opened its weathered pages, revealing the elegant script of a long-ago librarian who had chronicled the history of the retreat. The entry spoke of the challenges and triumphs faced by those who had dedicated their lives to preserving the written word and nurturing a love of learning among generations of visitors. Deeply moved by the journal's insights into the retreat's past, I shared its discovery with Sarah that evening over a dinner of hearty stew and freshly baked bread. She listened intently, her eyes alight with curiosity and wonder. "Michael, this is a remarkable find," she remarked, setting down her spoon. "It reminds us of the legacy we've inherited and the responsibility we carry to safeguard it for future generations." I nodded in agreement, feeling a renewed sense of connection to the retreat's rich history. Together, we resolved to delve deeper into its archives, uncovering hidden treasures and untold stories that would enrich our understanding of its enduring significance. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and I immersed ourselves in the retreat's archives, piecing together fragments of the past to weave a tapestry of shared heritage and timeless wisdom. We uncovered letters from renowned authors who had sought solace and inspiration within our walls, manuscripts that bore witness to the creative process, and photographs that captured fleeting moments of joy and reflection. Inspired by our discoveries, we curated a special exhibition to celebrate the retreat's centennial anniversary, inviting scholars, artists, and community members to explore its history and contemplate its future. The exhibition showcased rare artifacts and manuscripts, interactive displays that invited visitors to engage with literature in new and meaningful ways, and workshops that encouraged creative expression and critical thinking. On the eve of the exhibition's opening, Sarah and I stood together in the library, surrounded by flickering candlelight and the hushed whispers of anticipation. "Michael," Sarah said softly, her hand resting on mine, "this is more than just an exhibition. It's a celebration of everything we've worked for, everything we believe in." I nodded, feeling a swell of emotion as I looked around at the carefully curated displays and the faces of guests who had gathered to pay homage to the retreat's legacy. "It's a testament to the power of literature to unite us across time and space," I replied, my voice filled with pride. As the doors opened to the public, we welcomed visitors with open arms, inviting them to embark on a journey through the retreat's past, present, and future. Scholars discussed the significance of literary movements that had shaped our cultural landscape. Artists found inspiration in the tranquil surroundings, and families bonded over shared stories and newfound discoveries. One afternoon, while strolling through the exhibition with Sarah, I paused before a photograph of the retreat's founders, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of twilight. "Sarah," I said quietly, "do you ever wonder what they would think of all this?" She smiled warmly, her eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. "I think they would be proud," she replied, her voice filled with conviction. "Proud of how far we've come and how we've honored their vision." As we continued our journey through the exhibition, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and whispered conversations, I knew that our work at the retreat was far from over. There were still stories to uncover, minds to inspire, and new chapters waiting to be written in the ongoing narrative of our lives together. With the success of the Centennial exhibition at the retreat, Sarah and I found ourselves reflecting on the profound impact of literature and education in our lives and the lives of those around us. The exhibition had sparked renewed interest in the retreat, drawing scholars, artists, and visitors from far and wide who sought to immerse themselves in its rich history and creative atmosphere. As the seasons changed and the retreat settled into a new rhythm, Sarah and I continued to nurture our vision for the future. We expanded our educational programs, offering scholarships to promising young writers and artists from underserved communities, ensuring that the retreat remained accessible to all who sought inspiration and knowledge. One spring morning, while Sarah was leading a workshop on storytelling techniques in the garden, I received a surprising letter in the mail. It was addressed to me personally, bearing the seal of a prestigious literary foundation from the city. Curious, I opened the letter and read its contents with growing astonishment. The foundation had selected me as the recipient of their annual award for contributions to literature and education. The award came with a generous grant to further develop the retreat's programs and expand its outreach efforts. Excitedly, I shared the news with Sarah that evening over a candle-lit dinner beneath the stars. Her eyes widened with joy and pride, her hands clasped tightly around mine. "Michael, this is incredible," she exclaimed, her voice filled with admiration. "It's a testament to everything we've worked for." Over the following months, Sarah and I collaborated with educators, artists, and community leaders to launch new initiatives at the retreat. We hosted literary festivals that celebrated diverse voices and perspectives, inviting authors and poets to share their work with audiences eager to engage with the power of storytelling. One evening, during a poetry reading in the library, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this moment. The library was filled with the soft glow of lanterns and the murmurs of guests discussing the profound themes explored in the poetry readings. As I listened to the poet's words weave tales of love, loss, and resilience, I realized how far the retreat had come since its humble beginnings. It had grown into a beacon of creativity and learning, a sanctuary where ideas flourished and imaginations soared. In the quiet moments that followed, Sarah joined me in the library, her eyes sparkling with pride. "Michael," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of wonder, "do you remember when we first dreamed of creating something like this?" I nodded, smiling as I recalled the early days when Sarah and I had envisioned a place where literature and education could inspire change and foster connection. "Yes," I replied, squeezing her hand gently, "and look how far we've come." As we stood together in the library, surrounded by the echoes of poetry and the warmth of shared stories, I knew that our journey at the retreat was far from over. There were still new chapters waiting to be written, new voices waiting to be heard, and new dreams waiting to be realized in the ongoing narrative of our lives together.